Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on our first social night of the year. It is a Turbo Fever night and we hope that we have put on a nice turbo display for you all. Basically, Grant and myself are going to be going through each era of car, and Grant will give you a little bit of explanation of what changed, why it changed, and you can also ask a question if you've got an underlying question you need to ask.
This is the first model that they brought out. It was a 3-litre turbo. It had no intercooler and 280 horsepower from memory, I think.
280? Yep.
The brakes were a little bit left to be desired, so they were a rather small brake, but nonetheless it was their iconic first turbo. Moving to a 3.3, they increased the horsepower to 300 horsepower. 300 back in the day when they brought these out, that was like everyone was, wow, 300 horsepower. So they put an intercooler on them. The capacity went to 3.3 litres instead of 3 litres. They also upgraded the brakes. So the brakes were off at the time their 917 Le Mans car. So they put them into a production version of that and stuck them on this car. So this car, for its day, probably the ultimate performing car back in the day. A lovely car. The 3.3s are, I mean, look, both of them are very, very lovely cars, but the 3.3 is, in my mind, a very nice car. 964 3.3 turbo, so they kept the capacity of the engine the same. A slightly bigger intercooler, different turbocharger. They kept the same fuel system on these cars, so it still was a K-Jetronic fuel system we talk of, so it just had some electronic controls so it could change the mixture slightly with a little bit of electronics introduced. But again, you can see the difference in the intercooler, larger intercooler, bigger turbocharger. Different brakes again, different suspension revision. Obviously the 964 had different suspension, so it's quite a different car to the 3.3. However, it just had bigger intercooler and some various other things on the engine which made it perform a little better, I think. 330 horsepower, so there's a few little tweaks to gain a bit more power. So it was quite a big revision in this particular model. The 3.6, obviously these are an incredibly rare car, as Scott just said. Very similar car. The wheels, they've got the 3-piece wheels, some slightly bigger brakes again over the 3.3, quite a lot of power, but other than that, the styling again is quite similar. Slightly different rear bumper bar on them. Same suspension, slightly bigger brakes, more power. Obviously it went to 4-wheel drive, so it was quite a big difference from the 964 up to the 993. First turbo, 4-wheel drive. They had a 6-speed transmission instead of a 5-speed transmission. They went to twin turbochargers instead of single turbocharger. Complete electronic fuel injection system now, so you went from your K-Jet to your full electronic management system.
Unofficially broke the 4-second for the first time too.
There you go. So,
first 4 seconds to 60 miles an hour.
Fun fact. A different intercooler, different engine configured, slightly different with the two turbochargers, all the manifolding and everything changed in them. Injection system changed, transmission changed, 4-wheel drive. Similar brakes to the 964. What they know in the trade, I suppose, is the big red brake system. So everyone has probably read it or heard it. So they had big reds, and then they carried across to this car, similar brakes. Total revision of the suspension, and the rear suspension is double wishbone, like you say. Obviously a total revision from air-cooled to water-cooled. First of the variable vane turbochargers and things like that. So they went to a very, very different technology. Still obviously 4-wheel drive. You could get them in Tiptronic now for the first time. A different engine, you went to a 3.6. So different, and again, when you're looking in the back of this, it's a very different look to what they previously had. You've got intercoolers in the back corners now, not in the back like you would see in all the other models previously. Again, different suspension to the 993, so that all changed. Brake system, again, different. Again, they had what they call a monoblock caliper. So the caliper itself is like a one piece rather than 2 sections joined together. It's supposed to add a better feel, better rigidity, so the caliper didn't flex. Radiators, water is the big thing, obviously. I guess the differences between the turbo and a normally aspirated 996 was that these still had basically an air-cooled crankcase, and they built out from the air-cooled crankcase, so they still had a dry sump tank. In terms of the engine, it's a very different engine that you get in a turbo versus a naturally aspirated 996. So Series 2 is the first of what they call the direct fuel injection engine. You don't have it coming in through the manifold, it's directly into the cylinder heads. You've got variable vane turbocharger technology, you've got same capacity. It is quite a different. Gen 1, Gen 2 are very, very different.
Very few people ever bought a manual, and it's almost got to the point where the thing is so quick, the changing gear, you get in the way of the performance of the car. When things start going back quickly in modern, no one's swapping cogs anymore.
unfortunately don't get to see a lot of these just yet. I know that they've got active aero in the front spoiler and the rear spoiler, and so they move as you increase speed and things like this. Probably a bit like most rocket ships these days.
Guys, we need to thank you all for joining us. This is the first of 4 social nights, like I said. Next month we are going on a social drive. That's February the 18th. It's a Sunday. If you haven't got the information already, just drop an email to Alina at autohaushamilton.com.au.
Hopefully we can do a bit more of this, and just for introduction of special cars, and so people get to actually see them, because obviously a lot of this stuff you only read about or look at on the internet. So we'll try as hard as we can to bring some of this to light for you also.
All right, thank you.